you go. All right. Are we ready, ladies and gentlemen? Let's open this meeting then.
Indeed, thank you.
Yeah, call the meeting to order. Roll call of council members. I'm just going to go across the screen as I see you guys. Laurel Hill Ward,
Present.
Vicki Wanacott, present. Alex Amber,
Present.
Chelsea,
Here.
Trisha,
Here.
Susan. Oh,
Yep, here.
yeah. And that's all of us. And we do have a quorum. Good. All right. Anyone want to read the invocation? I will do that then. This is our school. May peace dwell here. May the rooms be full of contentment. May love abide here. Love of one another, love of our school, and love of life itself. Let us remember that as many hands build a house, so many hearts build a school. All right. Do we have any agenda modifications? I'm not hearing anything. Okay. Do we have any audience members to address the council?
We
Still
have
no.
Jack-
I'm assuming that I would hear you guys. It's just total silence is what I'm getting.
we have
Vicky.
Jackie.
Jackie
Jackie.
Hammer has her hand up. Yep.
Jackie, please go ahead. Thank you.
Hi there. See, I'm confused by this addressing the council. Like, it says that you're not supposed to address anything that's on the agenda. But in my past history, I've always felt that parents always talk during this time, even if it is on the agenda. Am I correct or no?
So
Vicki,
it's usually
Oh, go ahead, Susan. I apologize. I didn't hear you.
that, yeah. So generally, the best conversation is when the item is on the agenda, because that's when the board can ask you questions, or they can respond to you. What you can go ahead and speak now, but then and often people do if they're not planning to stay for the whole meeting, but it's generally better to speak at the time when the agenda item is actually able to be discussed.
Because if it's not on the agenda, we really can't speak to it.
Right. Okay. All right. I guess I'm just concerned by the volunteer policy that has been put in place by administration. I know you're going to talk about it later, and I will also answer any questions then. I tune into your guys' meetings because I love listening to you guys talk about our school passionately. And last meeting, you talked a lot about volunteer and getting parents back on campus to help you. I find it kind of strange that faculty and staff were not required to be vaccinated in order to teach on campus, but they're asking parents who want to volunteer on campus be vaccinated. I get that we are chartering unfamiliar grounds with COVID. I have been an avid volunteer at that school for many, many years in more classes than just my children's classes, because I've been active in the garden for at least 11 years and have built every garden on that campus. I'm just really concerned by this policy, and I understand it's administration that put it into place, and I don't believe Charter Council had anything to do with it. But it's something to look at if you are going to want parents in the future to help if COVID just doesn't go away. And I will definitely talk more when it comes up. I just wanted to make sure that I was heard about it before it just gets spoken about on the agenda.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
I also have an item to address the council.
All right.
That's not on the agenda. I would like to welcome Nick Meyer as the incoming co-chair for faculty. So he'll be a regular attendee now. We made the decision to vote for the position prior to the end of the year, so we could walk into the new year more prepared. So we're very grateful for Nick for standing up, and we will also be volunteering, and we'll also be saying our adieu to Miss Brianna Lee, who has served valiantly for 3 years and is ready to step down and take a breath, get her in breath, out breath
All right.
balanced. She's worked very hard over the past 3 years, and we very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Susan.
Mhm.
All right.
We do have one more. Carissa is the name on the screen who has her hand up.
Hi, I just wanted to also chime in and back Jackie up and say, as a parent, I know there are going to be quite a few parents who will also have issues with the policy that Jackie spoke of. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And that's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Carissa. Thank you. All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have any? Can we accept the consent agenda as it is?
I move to approve. the-
There were two people speaking. Go ahead, Laurel.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Apologies if I walked on somebody.
You're fine, Laura. I'll just second it. This is Chelsea.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Laurel. Any discussion? All right, we'll have a vote. Let's start with Amber,
Aye.
Chelsea,
Aye.
Trisha,
Aye.
Laurel,
Aye.
Vicky Wanacott, I, and who have I forgotten? I didn't forget anybody. Nicholas, are you voting tonight?
No, we don't vote, Vicky, just the board members.
Okay.
We're staff.
All right. So we got eyes all around. Okay, thank you. Moving on to governance. Finance Committee Report 3.1. Chelsea, take it away.
Before we move on, I think we may have made an error in that vote because we do have 3 parents and only 2 community members. And I believe that we cannot have more parents than community members voting on an item.
So we should revote,
This is Trisha. I'll just abstain.
and Trisha will abstain.
Yeah.
All right, could we have that motion read one more time? Just a motion to accept the consent agenda was made by Chelsea.
No, it was made by
No.
Laurel.
Laurel, Chelsea seconded it,
Yeah.
and Trisha will abstain the vote, and we will vote again. Chelsea,
Aye.
Amber,
Aye.
Laurel,
Aye.
and Vicky, I. Okay. Financial Committee Report, Chelsea. Thank you.
So it's a fairly straightforward finance committee meeting, we reviewed the finance reports, everything looked good, as you saw in the consent agenda. And one of the big things that we did discuss, which is on the agenda later, so I won't go into great detail, but we discussed and recommend the board approve the administrative salary schedule that will be presented shortly. As you know, we've already done the work to review and approve the certificated and classified salary schedule. So this is the last piece of getting the salary schedules in place. We also, as you'll see later in the agenda, discussed the expanded learning opportunities grant plan, which will be, I guess, technically, it says I'm going to discuss it. I'm going to defer to Susan to actually discuss that when we get to item 3.8. She'll have a lot more than I do. But again, the finance committee did discuss and recommends that the board approves this as well. And those are the big ticket items. We did look at what our outlook is, and from a financial position, we're looking good to finish the year without needing borrowing. Everything's still coming together, just with the timing of when our checks are coming in. We continue to look at that very closely at each meeting, because from a cash position, we're doing really well. From the cash flow, which relies on when that money actually shows up in the mail, we're tight, but still looking healthy.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you. Any questions or discussion on that?
This is Trisha. I just want to say thanks to the finance committee, because I was reading through those reports over the weekend and I was like, this looks so much better from a cash perspective from the last 3 years. So I really appreciate that. So yeah.
Well said, Tricia. Thank you. And 3.2 parent council report, Tricia.
So this meeting, they didn't have a quorum, so they couldn't vote. So we're having another special meeting to go on some of the funding requests that they had. As I think we get to the end of the school year, that seems to be fairly typical. So Susan was there and talked a little bit about the LCAP and the town hallish meeting that was held prior to that with parents, and presented some of that to parent council. Talked about the May Fair and kind of the wrap up of that, and that seemed like it was a really good success and a lot of really good feedback with the drive-through. More of a challenge to try to get people to not engage and stay in their cars versus get out of their cars if they just want to be part of it. So that was really good. And there was talk of maybe doing a yearbook. So pursuing that a little bit more next year. There's a group that has done them in the past, and looking at that and writing that for the whole school. So that's a fun idea. Those were kind of the big things that we talked about.
All right. Thank you, Tricia. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving right along to 3.3, appoint a BOCC member to run elections. Susan.
So this can be anyone on the board. It needs to be somebody who is not up for re-election at this time. The biggest part of the job is overseeing the counting of the ballots.
Okay.
Excuse me.
What, give us a clue who's, I think I'm signed up for 2 years, so I'm not up for election, am I?
You were not up for election. I believe it's Monica, Laurel, and Amber that are up for election. Is that correct, Alex?
I
Laurel.
think it's Laura, Susan. I looked it
Oh,
up.
sorry. Laura, okay.
Okay, here we go. And this was just based on the
Okay.
recommendations from a
Okay.
past, or their preferences from a past board meeting. So we can change.
My understanding is that I'm up for
Thank
reelection.
you, Alex. Right. Hello?
Do we have any dates on when that will be yet?
So at the moment, we've put out the applications and notice in Parent Square, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. The applications were going to be due this Friday so that we could hold the elections starting next Wednesday, the 26th, and closing Friday, the 28th, trying not to run too far into the last week of school. But we are looking at only one current application turned in, so we would need 2 community members if anyone knows anyone who's interested.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do it. I just want to make sure I wasn't gonna be somewhere else, but I'll be around as long as it's before school.
Okay. To
Is
help.
that you, Tricia?
Yeah. You do enough, so,
Oh,
yeah, so that's Trisha, I'll do it.
Thank you, Tricia. Great. Is that you should touch base with Alex?
I think we need to vote for her, or you need to vote for her. Someone needs to nominate her.
This is Chelsea, and I nominate Trisha to be the BOCC member to run the election.
Does that require a second?
Yes, it does.
I second Chelsea's motion.
Thank you. All right. Any more discussion? And we'll have a roll call vote. Laurel Hill Ward.
Aye.
Laurel Hill Ward.
Sorry.
You
if you-
guys are all frozen.
Aye. Aye.
I'm having trouble with my connection, you guys.
Aye.
Thank you, Laurel. Vicky Wanacott, aye. Chelsea?
Aye.
Amber?
Aye.
And Trisha, are you abstaining again?
Yeah, I'll abstain.
All right, thank you, thank you. Okay. Sorry, you guys, my internet connection is being kind of wishy-washy. So that passed, and our next item is establish Executive Director Review Committee. Gosh, it feels like we just did this review, but good, okay. All right. Are you guys hearing me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, thank you, thank you. I wasn't sure. So if we're gonna have a committee for the review of the director, shall we just ask for volunteers for the committee? Susan, give us a hint. What is involved in the committee work? Can't hear you.
You're on mute, Susan.
During the last 2 years, we've developed the tool that's used to do the review. And we've had 2 members of the board volunteer to write up the review, collect whatever data is needed and write it up, and then present it in closed session to the remainder of the board. So it is as big a job as you want it to be, I guess. So going through the tool, writing up what you've seen going on, and then sharing or working with the board to complete it.
All right. Laura and Laurel did a lot of work on that last year. That was a big job. I will be glad to step up for that committee.
I would be happy to work on it again. I will say at the outset, Vicki, I would love to work with you, and I know Chelsea's very busy, but I would enjoy working with her. If somebody would prefer to do it rather than me, I'm fine with that too. It's all good.
All right.
How many board members? Just 2 on this one?
2, yes.
We've never limited it though, Susan, have we? It was more
Yeah, it could be 3. It couldn't be more than 3.
okay.
You
Okay.
could have 3.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Well, Vicki, I think it would be great, and Laurel, you're such an asset on this committee. I would love for you to remain on it, and I would be happy to participate with you 2 ladies and work with you on that.
That's great. Good. We got a committee.
Okay, good.
Committee of 3. We will be in touch through text at another date. Is this all right?
Yes. And
Okay.
just for clarification, via email, is that okay?
Email is better. All right. How about you, Chelsea? Is email better for you?
Yes, email works great for me. I do think we need to vote on this committee though. We need to.
We do need a vote. All right.
And a nomination.
Yeah, this is Trisha. I'll nominate Vicki, Laurel, and Chelsea for the committee.
Thank you, Tricia. Do we have a second?
This is Amber. I'll second it.
All right. All right. And roll call discussion, questions. And roll call vote. Laurel Hill Ward,
Hi.
Vicki Wanacott, aye. Chelsea Parker,
I'll abstain.
Amber,
Aye.
Tricia.
Aye.
All right, that passed. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Item 3.5, the COVID-19 response report and reopening plan approval. We had a good look at the plan last week, didn't we?
Mhm.
Yes.
So for the report, just the current status, we continue, it's getting close to the end of the year, but we still continue to have each week a few additional students enter the hybrid program. So we at last count, we're up to 87% of students were working primarily on campus. So we appreciate that. We did, and this is what Jackie and Carissa talked about earlier, of concern. We did look into what we could do. I had a number of requests for how we might be able to begin to include volunteers back on campus, and with a couple of field trips happening, and for year-end party for the 8th grade, and with the moves and the work that families and parents have always done for moving at the end of the year, I was asked to take a look at what we could do. We worked with Butte County Office of Education and asked them the specific questions and suggestions as to what we might be able to do to bring volunteers back on campus. And this policy is based on that and is intended to be in place through the end of this year. Next year, we will look at what's possible again at that time. So again, you know, as Jackie mentioned about the difference about staff not being required to be vaccinated. And of course, there are some very different legal obligations around paid staff and volunteers. So those things were also looked at. So this is in hopes of allowing the teachers to receive help in the year-end activities and moving and those sorts of things as we end the year. So that's what that was for. We have had, and it includes field trips. And other than that, we are really looking at, as the opportunity. The policy says we're really looking at full reopening next year, still being in compliance with COVID. New things are coming up all of the time. This last week, we had the surprising news that fully vaccinated, anyone fully vaccinated did not need to wear a mask. And I had said in this, give me more than a minute to review it. There were no changes, and the nurse came out actually yesterday confirming that there were no changes with the expectations with schools. However, things continue to open up, and so we are hopeful that we will continue moving forward and have more and more relaxed expectations around COVID as the science develops and they learn more about the realities of our current situation. So
Yeah.
that's my report.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have some comments, questions, and requests as far as the volunteering goes. I absolutely understand the need to protect our students and staff as far as the vaccine requirements. But I wonder if the consideration could be made to extend that to non-vaccinated parents with a negative COVID test within, results being within 72 hours or something like that. Because I know that other activities are, like when my oldest son, when their sports started back up at Chico High, that was one of the requirements to be able to play in the games against other schools, so obviously that's different than this situation, but that's what triggered the thought, because they were bringing together two groups of non-vaccinated people, because at that time we weren't vaccinating teenagers. And the requirement was that a negative COVID test results needed to be presented, and the test had to have been performed, I believe it was within 72 hours. So if parents who, for whatever reason, are not getting vaccinated, which is their choice, it still doesn't preclude them from being able to participate on campus, but it also then protects, provides a level of protection to the students and staff in ensuring that they are in fact negative for COVID before coming on campus. I hope I worded that well.
Yeah. And certainly, Chelsea, as things unfold further and we get more information on COVID, something like that might be possible. It was not recommended at this time.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're following the recommendations that we received from the safety officer at Butte County Office of Ed. Chico Unified and other schools are often just not allowing any volunteers. And my sense for Blue Oak is, with those moves and so forth that we do at the end of the year to really help that process begin to happen, we wanted to allow at least some level of volunteering. The whole sports thing has really, that's come up otherwise as well, and I'm really trying to sort of sift out how to apply those sorts of questions to Blue Oak and to elementary school. It is an interesting sort of area, and we've seen it in so many different places. When one area gets opened up and you say, hey, how come this area hasn't been opened up also? And we need to have those discussions and figure out how that can apply. I'm hoping this summer will give us some time to get a better understanding and balance of what we need to do in the fall. So an ever evolving situation.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Susan.
I didn't think to come across as, well, if they can do it, why can't we? It was just, that's where the idea came from. So I wanted to share
Yeah.
what even got that.
And I did not take it that way, Chelsea. It's the question that I have. So if we can do that, you know, so that if they can play, I assume football in the fall.
Well, they've just
What?
finished their football season. They've actually
Yeah,
been playing all spring in contact sport. football.
yeah. So if that's happening, why this? But I still have to, I'm not a scientist. So I have to ask the scientists why and get them to respond. And that's what I'm trying to do.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Susan?
I wanted to chime in and say, I really appreciate the parents speaking, you know, bringing their perspective. Parents are so important. And I guess throughout the whole pandemic, my attitude has been everybody's entitled to their opinion. And it's been made so difficult by it becoming kind of politicized. And then also we hear this and we hear that and we hear this. And you know, so it's very hard to determine. I don't know about liability for the school and all that, and would leave that to our capable administrator. But I do want to thank the parents for wanting to be there at a time when it's hard to get volunteers. And
Yeah.
I'm glad they brought it to the attention of the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, Susan, this is by no means set. This is just kind of a work in progress and where we're at right now. Is that correct?
Correct. That's where we are right now. And really with the idea of, as we close the school down for the summer, what can we do to increase the number of volunteers that can be who want to be on campus and can be on campus during this year-end period. I do not expect the same policy to be in place in the fall. And that was in no way my intent to make this a long-term policy.
Right. As we said, it's a very fluid situation. And we'll make the best decisions we can as we go along. Any other comments?
Vicki, I had my hand up. I have one
Thank you,
question
Jackie.
for Susan. Susan, you said you worked closely with, who did you say, the Butte County Educational, who? Can you repeat that for me?
I can't give you his name off the top of my head, Jackie. It's the Butte County Office of Education Safety Officer.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Righty. Okay. All right. Thank you all for your comments on that. We need to vote on the plan.
Yes.
We need to go over the plan again for anyone?
It's a fairly simple, but I wanted to make a clear statement or get a clear statement from the board so that it's clear to the community that our full intent is to reopen a full program, on-site program in the fall. There is a caveat, of course, that we'll continue to follow guidelines, and that for anyone feeling they still need distance learning, we'd do that through independent study. And then the caveat that we would go back to our current program if the pandemic requires it, in all hopes that we won't.
Yeah, we will. Right. Okay, thank you.
Susan, board, this is Chelsea. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the reopening plan with the addition of caveat that if we are to have to go back to any sort of online learning based on the public health guidelines, that upon clearance for reopening from them after any sort of event, that we would return to full in person within 10 days of getting that approval to reopen.
I'd be more comfortable with with it as it stands. And then just knowing that we're kind of groping our way through this, and rather than try to set future parameters, we may be reconvening to say we're back in complete isolation because a variant strain of the virus is killing people, and we may be celebrating the, that it, I don't know, miraculously went away. So I'd rather we just stay flexible, approve what we have before us, and then not worry about, but, address possibilities and probabilities later.
I would actually like to second Chelsea's motion. I think we should put that time frame on there. I think it's reasonable.
You're gonna have to repeat the time frame for me. In fact, the whole motion is overly long. I think, could we hear that again and shorter?
My motion was that we approve the reopening plan presented with the caveat that if we are to have to close in-person learning, that once cleared to fully reopen, that we would do that within 10 days of receiving that clearance.
I don't,
And
all right.
that suggestion, it comes, Chico Unified just had a similar caveat in theirs. It is certainly with the intent that guidelines would still all be followed and we would not reopen prior to the public health department recommending that that is safe to do so. I just feel like as a parent, knowing kind of what to expect and a time frame as to when things would reopen after receiving the clearance to do so. So I'm in no way suggesting that we reopen prior to being authorized, but it also then has that set in place on the flip side too, for the staff to be able to answer those questions. Like if the health department has us closed down and then clears us to reopen, that there would be no intention that we would immediately reopen. That would give the 2-week time frame to be able to prepare to have students back on campus.
Yeah, this is Trisha. As a parent, I would agree, and I think it would put some people at ease knowing that it's not been a prolonged thing if we did have to go back to the 6 learning. I think that's people's biggest fear.
And I think the expectation to be able to pivot quickly this time around is not unreasonable, since we do kind of know how to do it.
I'm a bit uncomfortable with that. I'm sure that it will happen within 10 days. It's such a maybe if sometime when scenario that, yeah, I think we all agree that we want to open as soon as possible. But Susan, what are you thinking?
Well, I am only debating the 10. So in my mind, because it depends, on when that 10 days happens. Does it happen like it did before? If they tell us like the day before spring break, and so this is what. So I'm getting sort of maybe too much of the detail, but of what might happen with that. So can we change it to say within 10 school days, or
Absolutely. And Susan,
I just because I'm so yeah, it's all of that's what's coming into my head, Chelsea, not that we can't do it in that period of time, but I don't want
absolutely. And
going,
Susan,
gosh, if we just had one more, if we could just start on Monday instead of Thursday, that would be really helpful. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking too.
Yeah, absolutely, Susan, and I'd be happy to, my intention was 10 school days, so I guess I should have, I would like to amend my motion to be 10 school days, which essentially, I mean, depending on, I suppose, what day of the week they were to come out and say it, but the expectation then would be approximately 2 weeks of school.
Okay,
You know, so 10 school days. I'd be happy to amend my motion to be 10 school days.
Yeah, that's fine. I would second that.
Chelsea, do you have a comment on when we talk about 10 school days? If the clock started ticking so that they went back on a Friday, for example, would that be, you know, if that 10 days ended up with them returning on a Friday, is that what you would expect?
Yeah, I still think that that's 10 school days, and certainly the school could choose to reopen sooner. So if returning on the Thursday instead works better. I know often when we come back from school breaks, it's not always done on a Monday because that's not always best for students to come back to school on the Monday and have a full school week versus a partial school week. So I don't think specifying what day of the week is important in my.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay,
and if I can add, it to some extent simplifies it, because then we don't have to call another board meeting and make the decision and look at that. It becomes more of an automatic, and going back to a regular school year will be much easier than all of the progression that we have had in going into distance learning and coming back partially. So yeah, so it feels doable to me within that 2-week period that we would give staff time to make the adjustments to their plans and so forth for that.
all right,
Yeah, I think we can do that.
all right. Alex, do you have the motion as edited and revised? Would you
Yes.
Can you read it for us?
Yes, I have Chelsea made a motion to approve the reopening plan presented with the caveat that if we are to open, or if we were to have to close in-person learning, that once cleared to fully reopen, we are going back to full in-person learning after 10 school days of that clearance.
Thank you.
Couldn't read my writing, but I got it all.
But I thought it was within 10 school days, not after, you know, somehow.
Within 10 school
I think
days.
the language should be within, otherwise it is basically mandating 10 days. Am I not understanding that?
No, thank you, Laurel. I was actually just going to say the same thing, that it should be within 10 school days.
Perfect.
All right,
Because that also leaves the flexibility for if the staff and administration wants to reopen 8 days or 9 days, because that works better, then they have the flexibility to do so.
all right.
So Chelsea, good job on that, but may I also just add a second caveat that, that we be flexible. Who knows what's going to happen? So I guess we are flexible.
Yeah, if it happens in 11 or 12 days, I don't think anybody's going to go to jail, or I don't think there'll be any lawsuits, but let's go ahead and vote on this. Questions and discussion further? No? All right, I'll have a roll call vote. Laurel Hill Ward,
Aye.
Vicky Wanacott, aye. Chelsea,
I will abstain.
Amber,
Aye.
and Trisha.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. Okay. Item 3.6, the SEL pilot plan. And that is, who's talking about that? Emma Todd.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, Emma.
Yeah, hello. My name's Emma Todd. I'm the school counselor here at Blue Oak. And before I begin, I want to thank the board for, offering some time to share the plan and the dream for next year. If I haven't met you, I just want to let you know a little bit about me. So I've been at Blue Oak just a little over a year, and I've spent the last year working and learning and observing the Blue Oak culture and trying to find something that would really fit in for our children and the school. Before coming here, I am a Waldorf graduate. I did kindergarten through 12th grade at a Waldorf school. So this is my life. This is my family. This is important to me to infuse the Waldorf philosophy into the social emotional world as well. And when I'm not at Blue Oak, I'm actually faculty at Chico State, and I teach in the graduate department of social work. And this semester I teach advanced child and family treatment. So I have, I'd say maybe a unique perspective to offer. And so I'd like to present that for you today. And again, thank you for the time. Alex, is it okay if I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So I know I can be a little long-winded on this, so I'll try to be succinct. So that's why I have a little PowerPoint for you all. So just an introduction to the idea for next year. I've read, just about every SEL curriculum I could find looking for a fit, but I kept coming up against a wall because we have such unique challenges this year. And I'll get into that in a moment. So what I want to do for you all and for the board is just a quick overview of the idea and then get into the 3 pillars of the approach that I'm proposing. So overview. Waldorf education encourages a balanced development toward physical, behavioral, emotional, cognitive, social, and spiritual maturation. So this plan, I'm really looking a little bit at behavior, but mostly the social and emotional piece of our children's growth. And to do that, I'm looking at the like a 3-legged stool to hold up our children. So one is creating a trauma-informed environment. That's also sometimes called a healing-centered approach, where at the very basic level, we are striving to not re-traumatize any of our children because of past exposure to natural disasters due to the pandemic or due to household trauma that they may experience or community trauma. It's nurturing the restorative work that's already at the school, but building upon it and really infusing it into all levels of our children's day, from community work within the classroom to all the way up to disciplinary approaches. So we're working at building, sorry. I heard someone talking. No, we're good, okay. So going all the way up to the higher levels of disciplinary action when needed. And then the third stool is learning more about our own minds, our own emotions, and look at emotional literacy for our children and our staff. So just if you haven't been exposed to the idea of a SEL curriculum before, I just want to show this inverted triangle. And this is how I conceptualize it. This is considered maybe a tier 1 or tier 2 type of intervention, where the language and techniques are used by all the staff throughout the school in all settings at the school. Sometimes small groups or one-on-one will be a part of it, but this does not get down to individualized plans. This is not about one-on-one therapeutic work. So I just want to clarify, this is not about the counseling program. This is about a curriculum for social emotional development and growth for all children, whether or not they're receiving therapeutic or counseling services. And SEL curriculums or social emotional learning curriculums are implemented at most schools in Butte County and across the state. So this is not necessarily unique, but maybe the approach is. So why look at more of a customized SEL approach instead of purchasing one? We have an area, a community that has experienced just complex trauma compounded, I would argue, since 2017, if not before then. 2017 was the Orville Dam tragedy, if you would call it that. And then we live in a community with an incredibly high exposure to adverse childhood experiences. 70% of our population in Butte County reports having 3 or more ACEs. And ACE scores, or adverse childhood experiences, are intimately connected with physical and emotional challenges and disease later in life. Everything from heart concerns to depression, anxiety, and more. So we have a really traumatized community. And even if our children specifically don't have an ACE, they're in an area where they may be exposed to friends who have ACEs, or, you know, other family members, or just a community that is in need of healing. So we're looking at the environments, we're looking at relationships, and then individually our children's minds. So trauma-informed, and this is just a brief overview. Again, I could go on about this for hours. This is my passion project. This is the work I love to do. So I will try to be succinct, but please let me know when questions pop up. So trauma-informed. Again, the idea of trauma-informed, at the very basic level, we don't want to re-traumatize any children. We don't want to expose them to any additional trauma or reawaken trauma within them from their past. And at the same time, we want to infuse positive experiences. We want to develop a space within which the children can grow and practice their own social emotional skills and practice their own relational skills. And Waldorf education lends itself very well to this approach, because already infused in the curriculum, the pedagogy is this idea of having predictable rhythms and routines, which is very comforting to children at all levels. Building strong and supportive relationships with the teachers, with staff, with parents, with other peers. Opportunities to explore individual and community identities. Who are we and what is this community and how do we relate to our community? And also empowering individual students' agency, raising students who can speak up for their needs and also advocate for others. So what is a trauma-informed mindset? It's actually a really beautiful, simple approach that is incredibly powerful for children and a community, right? We're all on a team and we cheer each other on. We work hard and we try our best. All children are our children, and they deserve safety, physical and emotional safety. And the idea is to make sure that everyone on campus feels cared for. This is a safe campus for all of us. And just again, why this is important. 1 out of every 4 children attending school has been exposed to a traumatic event that can affect learning and/or behavior. This is higher in Butte County. So we have an incredibly high number of children who need support behaviorally and emotionally. Why is this? What are some common traumatic experiences? This can be within the family, within a neighborhood or a community. It can be a loss of a loved one. It can be natural disasters. And looking back, we have multiple natural disasters in our recent history. The important part is that it is a distressing or disturbing experience as perceived by the person or the child. So it's not something, we don't say you're traumatized, because that's, well, it's not helpful, it's not ethically sound. But it's when someone comes to us or a child comes to us and say, this really impacted me and I can no longer cope, right? I can't take deep breaths and calm down anymore. I can't take space and feel better. This is too big. So that's the level of trauma that I'm discussing. And according to one study, classrooms that offered trauma-informed services, they showed improvements for children who have trauma, but also benefited all the children, families, and school personnel that participated. So their mental health and well-being improved as well. So this is more of a cultural shift or a paradigm shift, or really at Blue Oak, just an expansion and nurturing and expansion. For the first year, we're not looking to totally flip the script, right? We have a lot to work on, but starting that conversation, understanding why we need a trauma-informed or a healing-centered approach, putting in foundational structures to support this work. Again, that's predictable routines. It's creating a safe environment emotionally and physically. Excuse me. I also want to look at making sure we have a method of collecting and analyzing data so we can understand if we're progressing in a good direction or if we need to shift gears at some point. And also train all new staff members and educators in the idea of trauma-informed care. What is this? Why does it matter? So that's the first piece. It's more of the cultural paradigm shift. The second piece is more of the hands-on piece for faculty and staff. And when I presented this, I had some really positive feedback, and that gets me really excited about this. So this is the second leg of our three-legged stool. Restorative practices. They build community and promote healthy relationships among educators and students in order to teach the social, emotional, and conflict resolution skills necessary to reduce conflict. And that can be at different levels. So it can be between friends on the playground, like, oh, that's my ball. No, that's my ball, right? We get into an argument. We need to build conflict resolution skills. How do you get out of that without someone intervening? But then it goes up to higher levels of, say, there was an incident of cyberbullying. We need to really repair the relationship and make sure no more harm is done. And this is a way to do so that isn't punitive and more restorative and mends the community. So why am I looking at restorative? Well, one, it's here at Blue Oak, right? It's under the surface everywhere you look. We're all about community and repairing community. Restorative practices enable children to look beyond a consequence and really build that empathy piece, right? Why am I doing this? How is it impacting somebody else? Taking ownership when wrong is done. Oh, I really messed up. I need to apologize and mend the harm with whoever I harmed. And there are studies that indicate children who are exposed to restorative practices within the educational environment have greater engagement and interest in school, which is a really beautiful bonus for us because they have ownership of their community. So this will be done kind of in 3 different ways. I'm really attached to the number 3 tonight. I apologize, but we'll just roll with it. 3 everything. So one is weekly proactive circles. So you can think of this as classroom meetings where you all get together. How was your week? How are you feeling? It could be a check-in, but the idea is to get everyone used to the idea of coming together as a classroom community. This is a preventative action to build community, build relationships, and talk about things before they become a problem. So we can talk about relationships. We can talk about conflict resolution skills. The second part is more the responsive circles. So harm has been done, right? Someone's feelings are hurt, or we broke a school rule, or something more extreme occurred. This is more of the higher level. You're thinking about behavioral referrals. Maybe you're thinking about suspension. This is one way we can look at it, and not necessarily to replace the existing structures, but an additional tool, and also a way to support healing. Because again, this is all about building community. Through the pandemic, our community has stayed resilient and really tried to stick together, but it's been really tough for our children. And we need a format for them to come back together and learn those skills again. How do we come together? How do we mend the harm? And then also including the voice of upper grade students so that they have a piece and a stake in this process. Responsive circles, they're not just for when harm is done. They can also be used as circle of supports if a child is having a really tough time at school or at home. It can be grief and trauma if a student suffered a big loss. We can come together and support them. Again, harm. So harm circle is when harm has been done, or a re-entry circle. Say a student's been on vacation for a month, or say a student was suspended and they're coming back, there's a way to approach this coming back to a classroom so that they feel part of the community again. This is just a sample of what a circle looks like. It's very structured. There's an incredible amount of research and evidence behind the structure and how you approach this. And there's training for facilitators to do this. I personally have training and I'm looking forward to improving my training and doing even more so I can bring really sharpened skills to our children. And these are just, again, some goals for the next year. The idea is to really start infusing it in all areas of the school. So when we speak to each other, we're speaking about keeping our community strong and about healing relationships. So just some ideas. And to the board, I'm happy to share this with you if you want to really read through my PowerPoint. So the third leg of this stool, this is more on me and less on the faculty, although again, I'm hoping it'll be infused throughout the school. It's monthly lessons in each classroom about really how our mind works, how our mind and our emotions are connected. And then when we understand our own mind and our emotions, what we do about it. So I struggle with the wording of self-regulation. It feels like there's a lot of pressure on a child to take care of their body. But my knowledge and my experience guides me in this direction of, rather than saying, take a deep breath and calm down, if we can empower a child to say, oh, my heart is beating really fast and my face is getting hot, I think I might be getting angry. So this is what I can do, right? It's those really practical skills and understanding our bodies. We have more success that way, and children have more power over their own bodies and their own agency that way. So looking at emotional intelligence, it would have a mindfulness undertone. And what I found in the research and what I found in my experience, children and even staff who have been a part of an emotional intelligence or awareness in their classrooms, they benefit from improvements in their psychological well-being, and they actually experience less depression and anxiety. I receive an incredible number of counseling referrals in my room, and it's kind of funny being on Zoom because I see my door behind the board. So it's just kind of interesting to see my door and my little board there in the great room. Yeah, a lot of children come to that door because they're anxious or they're really depressed. And I'm not talking about sad, right? They're getting to the point of feeling numb. And so we need to do something proactively to support our children and give them tools so that they don't go down into that really dark space. And there are things we can do. Also keeping in mind that these numbers of anxiety have gone up with the pandemic. So there'll be a natural shift as we move farther away. But I also want to make sure our children have the skills they need. And then also those who engage in mindfulness-based emotional literacy have reported greater self-awareness, improvements in emotional reactivity. So that's when we're looking at the behavioral piece. They present attentiveness to their own physical body as well as their surrounding environment. So there's a lot of benefits to just understanding our mind, our emotions, and what we do with it. I've created a schedule for the year I broke the school into 2 parts. And the upper grades would have an additional unit for suicide awareness and prevention. That's really just focusing on more of what does it feel like to be hopeless? How do we get to that dark, twisty place? Who do we talk to when we need help? Because it's really not up to our children to take care of themselves when they're in that dark, twisty place. They need to know when to ask for help and who to ask for help and who can they trust. And so that's really what I want to make sure we get across to our upper grades students. So This is my hope. And again, this is just the proposal. Well, this will all get fine-tuned as we move forward. I'm hoping that at least 80% of students and staff will have a foundational knowledge of their emotional literacy and regulation. And I am putting staff in there and faculty. We're all going to work on ourselves. Sorry, surprise to all the teachers. Develop our own emotional wellness plan. My hope is through this series of lessons, the children will have something tangible to take with them about, oh, this is my brain. This is what I do when this happens, when I get hot in my heart, right? That's telling me this emotion's coming. This is what I can do, right? They can make their own wellness plan. And then we have our screening risk scale, a student risk screening scale, excuse me. And my hope is that we'll see a decrease in student risk over the year. So that's really what I'm looking at. So just to finish out, I love this quote. It really stayed with me. A teacher's love, an aesthetic environment, and a profound respect for the awakening individuality in each student are the mortar to strengthen the education of modern human beings. Love is a force that will grant each young soul the strength to meet the rigors of the path to knowing themselves. So Blue Oak, we're known for having a lot of love and support and caring. And my hope is this program would just nurture that and help that love grow even bigger. And so again, just in summation, three-part approach looking at the trauma-informed school environment, that's the community piece, the restorative practices piece, which is the relational and the interpersonal piece, and the emotional intelligence and literacy, which is knowing our own body and ourselves. So that is what I'm hoping to propose to you all. So, yeah.
Thanks, Emma. I do have a question, and I don't know if it's more for Emma or for Susan. But with this plan, a big portion of it is the training for the faculty and staff that goes along with being able to implement this. Is that going to be done by you, Emma, or are we bringing in trainers? Are we sending teachers out to training? I mean, I know nothing's formalized yet, but what is the kind of the intent or thought process behind this to be able to get everybody trained?
So Emma has been researching training opportunities that are available. She has one on the table right now that she's brought to me. And so it will be a combination of those things. Our intent is to do some professional training outside of the organization, but then the longer term practices will come from our regular staff meetings and support and implementation practices.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, this is Trisha. I think it's great. So I think that if we could offer our parents the same emotional awareness, it would be great. But yeah, I love it. Thank you for putting it together.
Thank you.
I know with the disruption of the pandemic, it would be difficult, but it'd be interesting to track behaviors. Of course, you do that record keeping and that data collection anyway at the school, but it would be interesting to look at it. I've read quite a bit about restorative justice, and they're like everything, it's not a panacea, but it has some good elements. Maybe the data isn't comparable or comparable, but would be the better way to say it because of the pandemic, but it'll sure be interesting.
Yeah. We have some, this year really surprised me in terms of the data and in terms of behaviors. And I'm surprised at how well our children have been doing and how well they're showing up for themselves and their own learning. And we have this, I don't know if it's a saying or just a knowing in the mental health world of we wait 6 months to see where our children are. So I do think maybe we'll have a spike in behaviors, not now, but maybe more in the fall. And then we'll see where that takes us. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep,
the data would be
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
I have a question. I had written down how this was gonna be tailored specific to what grade, but then I saw you did that. And so I just wanted to dive into that a little bit. When you were talking about leadership, are you talking about just the older students leading by example, or actually maybe doing some sort of mentorship or program? I know that goes on a lot in schools and we don't have anything like that. So I was just interested to expand on what question.
I know that's a really lovely question. And I know in the past there have been actual student leadership groups when there's been more like time on campus. And so my hope and my dream is that there would be some hands-on learning and work for those children, for the upper grades children. How that looks, I think, is maybe something I'd pass over to Susan and the faculty chairs. And then also waiting to see how much time we get on campus next year. So I have my hope and my dream, and then waiting for the practical pieces to fall into place. I think that, you know, that upper grades mentorship piece is really beautiful piece of the Waldorf curriculum. I know I still remember getting my 8th grade buddy on the rows, and that was so special. And I know Blue Oak has done that. And so I look forward to seeing more of that. But yeah, I pass those practical pieces to the faculty chairs and Susan.
Right.
And my second part was, so would you be in the classroom with the students doing this with the teacher, or was this something that you would be working with the teacher and then they would be doing it in the classroom? And I know that might be a little complicated too, given the circumstances right now, but.
Yeah, I have a preliminary answer and then see how it builds. So the lessons on emotional literacy and that piece, that would be something I would offer to the classes. So I'd go in and offer that piece personally. The restorative piece, especially the proactive circles, I think it's important that the teachers have a say in that and ownership over that piece, because each classroom is its own little community. And so my hope would be to support faculty in creating their own culture around those circles and those class meetings. When it comes to any type of harm or a reparative circle, that's something I think myself or a behavioral interventionist, Amber, or another trained staff person could step in, because having a neutral voice is really helpful in that. And that would also allow the teacher to have a say in the circle to talk about how the harm impacted them, which I think is important. And then the trauma-informed piece, again, I think that's just a community conversation over what can we do in classrooms and as a school to make sure everything we're doing is with the intention of supporting each child's emotional and physical safety, which again, a lot of it is happening right now. So I just want to help it build. And I think Waldorf teachers are very humble in that they do a lot of work in their classrooms and they don't always share what they're doing. So I'm hoping to also put a spotlight on those pieces of beauty that they're already doing and give them other words to describe them. So it's a combination. Yeah. Did that answer?
Yeah, yes, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Anything further? Thank you so much, Emma.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for having me.
All right. Moving on to 3.7, review the strategic plan addendum. We worked it over last week, didn't we? Is that you, Susan?
Yes, that's
Go for
me. Yes. So last week we worked over the strategic plan, as Vicki said, and really talked about where we are now and where we want to go forward. So based on the conversation and the notes, from that meeting, I put this addendum to the strategic plan together for review, for your review and board approval, so that we would move forward with these changes. And of course, these are as my best interpretation of the evening. So please, if you think, oh gosh, Susan, I remember it this way, please don't hesitate to make a recommendation for an update. So I worked the goals a little bit differently, and sort of took where we had previously said this is we had goals based on an annual goal. I took the general title of the goal and then the actions under that. So the first goal was continue the development of sustainable school design. And this is the finance committee has been acting as the task force on that. And these 5 bullet points are the items that pertain to that goal.
Susan, do we need to vote, and do we need to make a motion on this tonight?
It would be best if you did it tonight. Yes.
All right.
The next goal was create an in and outreach task force, and then the items this task force will be working on over the next couple of years.
Susan, on goal 1, sorry, before we get too ahead.
Go ahead.
We have items 1 and 2 that both really inform item 3, but item 3 is due 5 months before item 1.
Well, oh my goodness, I didn't change that date. Finalize the plan for sustainable school development. That should be December 31st, 22.
Okay, I couldn't remember, and I didn't have, I could have flipped back to my notes, but I was just thinking, I was like, I feel like there's something like, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, so we have to do, yes, we have to do 1 first before we can do 3.
Yes, yes. Perfect. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
So number 4 has a couple months ago as the due date, which I know we originally, so are any of those dates changing, right?
Yeah, we could put that down to probably June. Instead, so we could change that date probably to June 30th, 2021 would probably give us enough time.
Yeah, okay.
That's on item 4.
Item 4, yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for the correction on the dates. And then it's that all the questions on goal 1.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to goal 2 then. And this one I did get the dates better, so. Okay. And any questions on goal 2?
Nope.
All right, let's move on to goal 3. This was the goal about the consistency of the behavior plan, and after the discussion, and you've heard the work that we are doing with on social emotional learning. So I updated it and to include what we are currently doing and setting a date of next June. Then be looking at the consistency and the other issues after that seemed appropriate.
Good.
Goal 4, professional development, staff-wide plan, which we are currently working on, so that should easily be done and ready by June of 2022.
Great.
Then the goal 5 remains the same, the rough draft of the charter for renewal. And then I moved the last goal to goal 6, which is to create the fundraising task force. And those dates we talked about pretty thoroughly last week. So establishing the task force by June 30th of 2023, and then doing the work of the task force during 23-24 is how I wrote this.
Good.
Goal.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd be happy to make a motion. This is Chelsea. Susan, first, I just wanted to double check for the SEL pilot plan. That does play a pretty integral role in our strategic plan. Did you need us to vote on that, or was that just an information?
Excuse me, that's informational.
Okay, so I just wanted to just verify that.
Yeah.
You
will.
But I want to make sure you have a vote if you need it, so we can move forward with it.
You will vote for it when you vote for the LCAP.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, I will happily make a motion that we approve the Blue Oak Charter School Strategic Plan addendum as of May 12th, 2021, with the 2 date changes discussed in goal 1.
This is Trisha. I'll second that.
Thank you, Trisha. Any further discussion or questions? All right, roll call. Laurel Hill Ward,
Aye.
Vicki Wanacott, aye. Amber,
Aye.
Chelsea,
Aye.
and Trisha abstain.
No, Monica's here now, so we can all vote.
All right. Oh, okay. And Trisha
Aye.
and Monica.
Hi.
Thank you. All
Monica,
right.
for the record, when did you join during the SEL program?
I joined when Emma was talking at 6:53 p.m.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you.
All right. And that's good. That feels good to have the plan in place and accepted. And our next item on the agenda is the yellow. I lost my agenda.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, the expanded learning opportunities grant plan from Chelsea. Thank you.
This has my name on it, but I really don't feel like I'm the correct person to present this.
Okay,
I think Susan definitely has more information than I do on this.
okay, Susan.
Sure. Again, as Chelsea mentioned earlier, we reviewed this with the Finance Committee also. And under Jim's advice, I took this opportunity for this grant to take a look at the overall plans for the additional funding that is being proposed and suggested by the state and the federal government. So looking at all that we want to do and placing it in the categories within this grant. The difficulty with this particular grant is it doesn't, or this particular format, it doesn't really explain a lot. It has its identifiers and then the dollar amount. It doesn't have much more than that. So I will go through and explain some of the items where we are on it. So the first is the plan description, talks about where we got the information, which we really combined it in with our LCAP survey and our LCAP work this year. This talks about, the description really talks about how we'll figure out what students need. And of course, we have our formalized assessments, our teacher developed assessments, and our leadership and special education and other processes that we use to determine what student needs are. Then there's a description of how the parents and guardians will be informed. We are doing a lot of work, as I expressed last week during the strategic plan. Parent Square is becoming our most used and informative practice. Very easy to connect with for both parents and teachers. So that's a primary way, but we also have Facebook and Instagram, our Acorn newsletters, and so on that we use. And then how we are going to provide the supplemental discussion, instruction and support. This really talks about our continued focus on universal design for learning, which is really making sure that the first instruction that we do is the best. And then developing time for response to intervention. We're looking at a period during the day for intervention, working it into our master schedules, are increasing our ELA and continuing our math intervention and so on. And then this is the expenditure plan, and this is what I feel like doesn't give me the opportunity to give you enough information. So I will explain a little bit where we are on this. First of all, in looking at this, these planned expenditures are the expenditures out of this grant. As I spoke to earlier, there are other funding that are coming in and are continuing to develop. We just received the May revise, which is the governor's budget plans for this year. He has a whole bunch of new opportunities that he's sharing that we may be able to participate in. So having this kind of a plan outlined is really helpful as new funding sources come in. So the first is just extending instructional learning time. The primary areas we talked about for this is to offer summer school this year and next year, and increase after school programs for both kindergarten and for the upper grades. We've had parents talk to us about the fact that the card program stops at 5th grade. We have a few items like math and chess that have been after school and handwork, but not really enough for parents to be able to consider it a full after school program. And that's a desire. Plus, with the need for additional education time from this year, that seemed like a good investment. So making afternoon kindergarten available, and so that kids can stay here until the end of the school day. And also this, increasing what's available for middle school children. So that's a big chunk of the funding for this particular grant. Accelerating the progress to close learning gaps through implementation, expansion, or enhancement of learning supports. We're looking here really to increase our aid staff or hold on to our aid staff there. Integrated student supports to address other barriers. This is where the SEL work comes in that Emma's talking about. Emma, as she said, has some great connections with Chico State, and we are recruiting interns to be able to do some work for us. And other charter schools have used interns for this as well. So we're not necessarily the first ones out the gate, but we do intend to utilize it. So things like dealing with our chronic attendance issues, dealing with some of our social emotional issues for children, increasing the opportunities for them to simply have a calming space, to utilize the training, the learning that they are gaining by working with Emma. And then just really those family supports. We find so many times the reasons the kids are not being successful is their struggles at home with food, with transportation, with the need for additional services. And to be able to really reach out is beyond what teachers can do for their best intentions or administrative staff. And so to be able to have that available will be great, but it won't cost the city thing because we're using interns from Chico State. Community learning hubs, we have done a significant amount of work to increase our internet capabilities at the school over the past 2 years. That was a part of a long-term plan and has been implemented very gratefully this year. So we really don't see the need to add any additional money into our high-speed internet. We may have some need as time goes on to deal with repairing Chromebooks or replacing them, or really making sure that our current our current technology is what we need. But we've spent a significant amount of money on that this year, so we're not seeing a need for that to come out of this grant. We do not have any credit deficient students. That is a high school issue. And then additional academic services for students. We have increased our focus both on math and on ELA, so money will go into that. And then we talked about the training for school staff, and so we put money for that, and of course for, as Chelsea asked earlier, for the social emotional health as well. So that's professional development money. So this grant is for 188,000. So we've placed that funding with the intent that the plan overall will also support additional funds that may come through.
Very good. Any questions, comments? All right, thank you. Does this require a vote?
Yes, this requires a vote.
I need a motion. Can someone make a motion?
Hey, Laura, raise your hand. Did you want to make a motion, Laura?
I was going to make a motion to approve, but I thought that might be a little on the slim side, but I moved to approve. And Susan, thank you for that careful explanation. It's appreciated.
Thank you.
And I'll second it.
Great. Thank you, ladies. And no further questions or comments. We will vote on the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan. Monica McDaniels,
Aye.
Vicki Wanacott, aye. Laurel Hill Ward.
I hope I'm not on mute.
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
Aye, thank you.
You're good. Chelsea Parker,
Aye.
Amy Brown, Amber,
Aye.
and Trisha.
Aye.
Atehertua. All right, thank you. That has passed. And the next item on the agenda is our executive director schedule.
The administrative salary schedule. So this
Salary
is,
schedule, right.
this is the salary schedule that we've been working on in finance committee, and Susan did a lot of research and helped us get some good information on this. The annual increase for those who don't know, administrators typically work on a daily rate because depending on the administrative position that they're in or the academic school year may require the contract to be more or less days. So it's developed at the daily rate, which is standard practice. So that's why you see it this way. And we did put in an annual increase of 3%, which is on par with the faculty pay scale that we just approved as well. So yeah, so this is what we discussed and reviewed and what we recommend from the finance committee to the board.
All right. Would anyone else like to comment? or have questions? Shall we make a motion to accept the executive director's salary schedule?
This is Trisha. I'll make the motion to accept the administrative management salary schedule.
I second it.
Thank you. And a vote. Monica McDaniels,
Aye.
Vicky Monica, aye. Laurel,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Amber,
Aye.
and Trisha.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nicely done. Thank you, ladies. Moving on to the executive director's report. Is that right? I don't have
Faculty 4.1 grade level report.
grade level reports. Thank you, Monica. All righty.
Hello,
Hello.
Alex, does it work better for me to share my screen or for the screen to be shared? What's easiest?
If you want to share, that would be perfect.
Okay, great. Go, I have my tab open. Voila. All right, so we've been sharing a variety of reports throughout the year, and we're bringing it back to 4th grade because we have been participating in some exciting activities. This year, we were not able to hold our traditional field trips. In fact, this group of students were also not able to go on the 3rd grade overnight field trip on a farm. So my students and Mrs. Hamblin's students are really aching for adventure. So Mrs. Hamblin and I had been creating projects throughout the year, and we really tried to bring this project to life in a new way. So hang tight, here we go. Okay, just some background information. We started with a variety of Native perspectives in the fall, starting our year with geography and learning about some of our local Native cultures. We actually had a special guest, Kelvin Mockingbird, join us via Zoom to play the Native American flute. I included a live link on this right here of my class's favorite song that he played, the Dance of the Butterfly Badger Girl. So I'll try and make sure this gets to everyone because it's just beautiful. I listen to it on Spotify all the time now. And we had also at the end of that block introduced non-Native interactions with Native people. So that was just touching on missions and other people who came to California. We had been reading some of the books that were available to us on site, which included Island of the Blue Dolphins, and that alluded to some of those interactions as well. So in our journey to expand and excite the students, we created a simulation game, which we had not tried yet before. If you've ever played or know anyone who's played the Oregon Trail, either online, they now have a card game, they have all sorts of things now. Well, we tried to create that in a living experience for the students. So each student developed a character with a set of skills. We had to choose where our character came from in the world. Some of our students decided to have their characters come from the UK and travel by ship over to the East Coast and then went into wagons across the plains to find gold. Some students wanted to have a character of old men, young children. They all had their own family role and background. And from there, they were put into groups, their little wagon groups, where together they kept track of money, they had an inventory of items, they had to make decisions and journal daily about their experience. this was, I can't even describe how impressed I am with the students in their group decision making and their communication and how invested they were. They started calling each other by their character names. They started making, like, bartering for items. It was so fun. We had few book sets for the Gold Rush era. So that included By the Great Horn Spoon. We also read a book, The Iron Dragon Never Sleeps, Sarah Plain and Tall, and Patty Reed's Doll. So these were all different novelized books that reflected people moving to California or working in California and their experience. This project was also made possible for distance learning and in-class students to participate together, which was exciting and challenging. Mrs. Hamblin and I wanted to be really thoughtful with this project because there are so many perspectives that traditionally have not been shared. And so we really wanted to highlight who came to California, why they come to California, and what it looked like from different opinions. One of my favorite days was talking about the missions, and my students and I discussed, well, what were some positive things that happened for Native people and what were some negative things that happened for Native people, and same with the Spanish colonization and Mexican ownership of this land. And one of my students raised a hand and said, well, I really liked the missions until today. And I said, well, and I hear that, but what were some other good things that happened? Well, oranges are here in California now because of the Spanish colonization of this land. If you like oranges, that could be a positive today and maybe a positive then. So we were able to have some really thoughtful conversations, which can be viewed as difficult, but the children were really understanding and open to it, which was really beautiful. Oh, these were just links to the state songs. I played the state songs. I have two versions. This first version, I can't remember what year it was recorded, but it's one of the older recordings that I could find. And this was a newer, yet still aged recording that my students and I really enjoyed. We were walking around the room, dancing to it. It was a great time. And then you might have seen, if you follow us on social media, if not, go ahead and follow us. These pictures got posted of students. We were trying to recreate the gold panning experience. I held this in the middle of our project, so when theoretically we were still in the Midwest, and I said, oh, this is something that happened. Here we are, let's do this. And I told them I gave them all the gold fever because they were really invested after that. So we were able to get a kit and gold pan and find treasures, and it was all really, really fun. And that is what we've been doing in 4th grade, wrapping up the year. I wish we could have gone on those field trips. However, I think we made a lot of fun memories in this project with our 4th graders.
All right. Thank you, Miss Murray. Moving along to 5, administration. Susan, Equity Task Force report.
First, I just want to thank you all. This is a long meeting, a lot going on, and I appreciate you attending and keeping going with the meeting this evening. I will try to be brief in this last section of the meeting. So one of the things I committed to earlier in the year is to update you on how we are doing with moving forward on the equity item and issue. And there are just so many different areas and conversations that are going on. I just feel like that depth of thought that Waldorf is so good at is truly moving forward and to bring that in. So and just that thoughtfulness is so often. So the task force itself moved into a number of focus area groups and teams that are working on that. So these are the teams, and I've just given you a sampling of some of the work that is being done right now. So for student education and curriculum, this is the group that's really looking at things like what books we use for our stories, how we write our stories, how we choose our field trips, how we talk about festivals, and all of that work, and really thinking about what is it we have now. That's been a big part of this year, really determining what novel sets and what materials we have now, and then looking for what our next steps are going to be as far as assuring we're using all of the resources and diverse viewpoints. Brianna Riley and I had a really good conversation just this afternoon about California history and all of the different groups that make up history and how to address that in fourth grade, and how much to address and all that. So those conversations are going on all over the place at the school. I was very pleased with the Mayfair materials. If you had a chance to see that, where they not only talked about Mayfair and spring, but really talked about a number of different ways that spring is celebrated throughout the year. And we talked about that and how spring in the northern hemisphere is now, but in the southern hemisphere is a different time of year, and how festivals and things change around harvest and so on. So having those conversations and really thinking about the different ways throughout the world these celebrations happen as part of that process. And then looking at faculty and staff professional development, we are inviting a speaker. She was a teacher here at Blue Oak in the past and now works in Southern California at the Citizens of the World Charter. So we're planning to bring her back for August, and then really looking at how we establish equity and anti-racism as a baseline in the school. And then of course the faculty has committed to continuing the read of How to Be an Anti-Racist. Those are just some of the things that we're talking about. There is more going on every day. For the school expectations, really been working on building the LCAP from the focus of equity. Equity, I probably have shared before or will later when I talk about the LCAP. It's really a through line for the LCAP. In every section or every portion of the LCAP, it talks about how are we doing things equitably. So really using that as a focus right now, and looking at potentially adopting or asking you to adopt the social justice standards that are from the Learning for Justice, it should say justice, not change, and which is also referenced from the California Department of Education is what they're suggesting. So that it gives it that extra level of appreciation. And then really looking at the parent outreach and social media, we have a parent forum scheduled for tomorrow night. It's based on a PBS video, How to Talk to Your Children About Race. We are regularly posting in social media and on the Acorn as often as weekly about the different celebrations and so on that to talk about diversity at the school. So those are the items that the task force itself and the community is working on. I'm reaching out to the Machopa tribe. They're in order to look at the land acknowledgement that Alicia presented last month. You know, part of me is sure it's fine. She received it from Chico State and I'm sure has a connection to the is appropriately written and so forth. But just wanting to really reach out to the tribe itself and talk to them about what to honor their what they're looking for in those sorts of things. There's the land acknowledgement, but there are other types of recognition that might be valuable too. So really wanting to have that conversation for that. Yeah, and then a group of teachers, the Waldorf certified teachers, began work on a statement for the website around Waldorf and our commitment to diversity here. And again, we'll ask you to approve that. And then looking for a representative parent committee. As some of you may know, if we are a larger school, we would be required to have some specific parent engagements around special education, for example, and around second language students. We fly under the radar in a way for that because we don't have the numbers of students that we need in order to require that. But a question as we look at diversity is, should we be finding a way to assure that we are reaching out to diverse families and making sure we're getting their input? And so this is an idea for how we might be able to do that. We have depended on the parent council primarily as a parent committee to advise the board, but the parent council tends to be your wonderfully, beautifully active parents and with their intent to support the school in a certain way. And I'm wondering if we can find another way to increase the diversity of our parent representation. So that is the idea there. So that's a synopsis of the work that's being done right now. And as I said, I'm hearing a lot of discussions among staff members and thoughtful reflection on practices that need to be changed or updated. And we are really at that point of taking stock of what we have and what we're doing and considering the best ways to move forward to both honor the past as in all aspects of it. So it's the work.
Right.
Any questions?
Questions, comments? This does not need a vote, right?
Right, it's just
We
a
are-
report. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for putting that all together. It's a
Yes.
great work. Thank you.
A lot of work. Thank you. And
Okay.
LCAP summary document
Yep.
is next, 5.2.
So a big part of the work we've been doing over the last couple of months is preparing the LCAP. It will be ready for your approval next month, but in the meantime, this is the document that we have worked on. I am proposing 3 goals. The goals around the three primary, there's lots of 3s in the world these days. 3 primary areas of the LCAP. The first one being conditions of learning, and then there are certain state requirements under each of those. So what I've done is taken conditions of learning, proposed a goal that is inclusive of those things under conditions of learning. And so the first one being basic services, you know, do we have the teachers we're supposed to have in the right places? Are we safe? Those are the first two areas. And what I've done is priority and actions addressed, and then the metrics or timeline as to when that will happen. So scroll down. I'm going to keep talking because I'm feeling like we've done a lot. Specifically addressing the needs of the particular populations, English learners, foster youth, homeless, low income, special education, and students of color, and how we're looking at doing that. This relates a lot to what I just talked about with the equity task force and so on. And then a formal professional development plan. This has been a dream of mine for a couple of years. So to really know what it is we want to improve as a school as a whole, and then how to make sure the training is done to implement that. So these are some of the areas, or this is a summary of the areas that have come up for the need for professional development. Okay, and then the last, to assure that we have a common core aligned curriculum, and the 3 curriculums that we're currently using, Bridges and CPM, you have approved. Sadly, or we expect to have a presentation for your approval in June, but that adopting those curriculums and then assuring they're in the block plans and in the planning stages for the teachers as well. And then the last one is course access. This is something that we're considered as a middle and elementary school to do fairly well because of our specialties work. Everyone receives music, art, handwork, and so on throughout the school. So everyone has a course access at this point. But the question for growth is how well are we preparing students for career and technical support? So some potential planning over the next 3 years on how to bring that more clearly into the school. It's definitely, as with so many things with Waldorf, we are clearly doing so many things, but we don't always identify it well. That clear identification will help us with our charter renewal work and that strength of our charter. So the next piece is engagement. This is exactly what it sounds like, involving parents. How are we involving parents? How are we making sure that students are coming to school and are engaged and excited about the learning? So these are the things under engagement that we are working on, continuing to focus on how we engage parents. The volunteer coordinator is something that came from the parent council. So we've looked at those things. And again, we're doing well as far as our notifications seem to be doing really well. Parent education, though, is an area that has come up in a number of different areas as well. And then student engagement, are they enjoying what they're learning? Yeah, we do a pretty good job of that. But how can we make sure that we can continue to improve on that? And the final one is the school climate, which we did a significant amount of surveys on. And those are things you'll note that talks about what Emma talked about earlier, the social emotional, trauma informed, and so on. And I've included, after some discussions, I've included staff in that as well. It's something that has come up locally, at least, but I think nationally as well, the realization that we don't really focus enough on the mental health of our staff and what that really does to help them support students and families in their learning. So those are some of the areas of that. And then the last one is that good old pupil outcomes, that actually measurable academic success. So outlining, working on outlining what our standardized assessments are, the ones that are here, ones we're already using. Are these the ones we want to be using? Our block assessments, implementing the Aries analytics, which really looks at the whole students, all of the data on a student much more easily. And then strengthening our reading instruction, and clarifying that. And is that it? Nope. And strengthening our math. Again, as I said in the grant, increasing our after school, middle school programs. And then the other student outcomes as the final area. And these are items that came up through the surveys and the town hall meetings. And, you know, and this is the sort of thing I truly enjoy when I say to parents, what is it that you want? You know, who do you want your child to become? And you know, aside from academics and being able to play the violin, who do you want them to become? And they talk about things like civic engagement and thoughtful and having experiences that lead to learning. And so I enjoy this section because I think it's very special to Blue Oak and unique. So that is a very quick overview of the direction we're going with the LCAP. The links to the results are all here in the support documents, as well as some other explanations of what experiential learning is and so forth, and requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I think it's fantastic, whatever extra work you had to put in for grants to get the kindergarten extended and after school programs, because I feel like that's gonna be huge for parents and sort of helping out with who can come to our school as well, because with those extended programs, I know a lot of our students come from all over. And so having that extra support after school and having where you have multiple students in different classes and you don't have to come multiple times because you have a kindergartner. So I think that's going to be huge for, I mean, really equity too in our school, that we have those extra programs. I don't really know of a lot of other schools that offer the extended kindergarten. So I just want to mention that I thought that was fantastic that we added that, and whatever work you did to add that, I think it's going to create a lot of value here.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Amber. All right, anything else before our last item? Okay, Susan, Executive Director's Report.
Executive Director's Report. Well, we've had some excellent favorite moments. And so I will let you read those. You know, we really hear a lot about the amazing students that we have at Blue Oak, and we really do have amazing students. So read about them and some of the things that they're doing. It is a beautiful place. We are working on the new hiring of the new positions. We're doing additional interviews right now, so hope to have some on the agenda for you next month. The marketing plan is moving forward. We hope to see some of the Google and or Facebook ads coming out by the end of this month. And that was, so that we're really excited to get that in gear. We're also looking at, as we talked about with the task force and the strategic plan, how to put together that more in-person outreach and get that moving again. So I'm working with a team of teachers this week to talk about some of those things and expectations and so on. So we continue to work on that. The mental health awareness, I wanted to present this. We had a parent meeting and a staff meeting on suicide prevention, and we also had a series of classroom talks from the Butte County Office of Education team. They came out in person, and both, and the comments from teachers were just excellent. They just really appreciated it. The staff, the students, it was really meaningful to the students. And the team that came out has also said what amazing students we have, how they just seldom experience the kind of thoughtfulness and understanding that our students express. So Blue Oak is most definitely a very special place for children and for adults. So that's just some of the things we've been doing this month. And with that, I will sign off because it's after 8 p.m.
It is after 8 p.m. We got so much work done today. Thank you all for being here. Do we have any other comments before we say goodnight? We have another meeting on May the 16th?
June 15th.
June 15th, I'm sorry, June 15th at 6, a Tuesday night, a regular meeting. So good night, all.
We enjoy Monica, but thank you, Vicki, for doing a great job facilitating the
job,
meeting. It's a
Vicki.
lot more work than you realize. So thank you.
Thank you, Vicki.
Yes.
Great work,
definitely.
Susan, on the LCOP report and everything. It's just amazing. So great
It was
job.
a lot of
Thank
work
you.
done, so much work
Yeah.
done. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Can I ask from a question in the chat, do we know if there's going to be a July meeting or will that be determined at the June meeting?
That will be determined at the June meeting.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Sounds good. All right, the meeting is adjourned. All of you take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.